Today, Aggressive Rhetoric and I are here to give you our thoughts on M21 after about a week. So every format is solved now. We're going to discuss what impact the reprints had, what the new cards were, how they're fitting their way into our constructed decks, what the limited format is like. I'm going to rub Will's nose in his bad predictions for M21, and I'm going to hope he doesn't remember my terrible predictions for M21. So I think let's get right into it.
Well, point of clarification, I'm not particularly going to talk about my decks. The thing is, I'm not playing any of these decks.
Okay.
But yes, we will talk about the decks that are being played, regardless of whether they're ours, because they're not ours. Or not mine, I'll say.
You're right, I'm sorry. Will only plays Embercleave Tribal.
Yes.
Hell yeah, brother. So, Will, you had some hot takes about Scavenging Ooze and the place that it has landed. What do you want to say about that?
Yeah, so I think Scavenging Ooze is the best constructed offering for M21, and it has shown its pedigree immediately out the gate. It made the mono green monsters deck that we're seeing in standard basically single-handedly made that a deck. Scavenging Ooze is just it's a well-designed Magic card. It does a lot. It's powerful, but doesn't take over the game. All it does is grow by one based on how the game goes, and prevents your opponent from doing anything crazy with the graveyard. It's a powerful and well-designed card.
Yeah.
So so it out the gate has seen a lot of play. However, there were a lot of people that were saying that it would be standard savior, that it would be the guillotine that would finally end the reign of Uro and all of these graveyard value decks. And honestly, that hasn't really been the case. If you look at MTG Goldfish's standard metagame, you see the mono green Stompy deck that runs the full 4 Scavenging Ooze is near the top, but all the main Uro players are still there at the top. Bant Ramp's most played deck, Temur Reclamation, Sultai Ramp are still, Simic Ramp towards the bottom, Temur Elementals. Uro is still the force to be reckoned with that was before Scavenging Ooze.
Yeah, and I think that's just because it's so good even without the escape. It's just 3 mana sorcery speed growth spiral and you gain 3 life is just fine.
Yeah, exactly. So Scavenging Ooze has not ended the reign of Uro, but still a good card to have in standard, and it has really shaken things up in historic. Gruul Aggro has always been a really good deck in historic. The last season, the one where you could inexplicably be able to play Winota and power out Angrath's Marauders and Asia and Treachery. Gruul Aggro was a playable deck and it was pretty good, but it wasn't the top dog. With the addition of Scavenging Ooze, Gruul Aggro did become the top dog, and we just saw a ban that's going to try to reduce the power of that deck. But Scavenging Ooze, really making a splash in historic as well. I'm glad to see it there.
Yeah, and I am too. I tried to make Modern Jund in historic because I'm so homesick for Modern, and I'm hoping Arena's getting toward there, and they're just not. But Scooz came out, and I was excited to play that in a Modern Jund type deck on historic. And I put in Lily, which does a very sketchy Liliana of the Veil impression. And it didn't do what I needed it to do, but it was a fun deck, and I liked the Scooz in there. It feels like it's one piece of making historic a little bit more like Modern. And that's always something I'm in favor of. So that's my favorite thing about Scooz being in the format.
Other than Scavenging Ooze, M21 really hasn't had that much impact. And some of that is the fact that all of the good dual lands are reprints that we've already had in the format. The only other card that's really seeing impact right now is Ugin. Bant Ramp being the top deck that runs a couple of Ugin. All of the other Temur Reclamation, the Temur Elementals, all these decks are very capable of ramping into a very early Ugin. And if you get an Ugin down, anytime turn 5 or before, or even 6, you're just going to have a bad time. we talked about this before.
Yeah.
Ugin itself is not that bad, but just like all the ramp that surrounds it is just terrible. And right now, like M21 is the format that, put Ugin in the same format as all of this crazy ramp. So those are really the main two big players that I'm seeing in M21 constructed.
Yeah, I would agree. I think maybe give the set a little bit more time to show up. And I think especially post-rotation, like we're losing a lot of this powerful ramp and stuff. And I feel like some of these good planeswalkers, like Chandra, I really think has a place in some deck, especially after rotation. Stormwing Entity I would watch out for. There's Stormwing Entity is a card I wanted to see a little modern play because you can Manamorphose into it.
Yeah.
Make a blue and a whatever and cast it for 2. And like I know Delver's not the hot shit anymore, but if you play Delver turn 1, turn 2, Manamorphose into Stormwing, and then the Scry 2 when it enters will help you flip your Delver. I think the card's severely underrated. I think it should be seeing play in Modern because a lot of the more explosive prowess style decks are already playing Manamorphose. So I don't know. I want Stormwing Entity to see a little play in Modern, and the new Chandra. I'm confident is going to see some standard play maybe after rotation. I have already slotted her into Merriment, and she's working really nicely. That's the only new toy that Merriment's really gotten from the set, but I do love Chandra in there. I think she's very strong there.
Yeah, I think that's true of most core sets that you really have to reevaluate all the cards that are in the set when we move into new formats. Something that I've noticed in M21 is there are a lot of plant cards, cards that like don't make a lot of sense right now, but will probably make sense in future formats with future sets. Cards like See the Truth. That's the anticipate that becomes free if you cast it from anywhere in your hand. I think we're going to see something down the road that will make that make sense, other than just be a silly card.
Clarification, it doesn't make it free. It makes you get all 3 cards.
I haven't read the card.
It becomes Ancestral Recall if you cast it from anywhere other than your hand.
Oh, why do you think I'm reading cards?
You're right. You're a girl aggro player.
Azusa Lost But Seeking, I really do think is a plant for Zendikar, which we haven't seen any spoilers yet, but from everything that we can see, is most likely going to be the Return of Landfall. We'll have to look at that. Looking forward to seeing how all these kind of future plants play out down the road.
Yeah. And maybe the new Garruk is a plant for them. Maybe making some good green cards in Return of the card. But I guess people are tired of good green cards. I don't know. The professor from Tolarian Community College, he had this dude on his podcast who was the #1 arena constructed player in Mythic for in the past season, and he was hyping up the new Garruk. He was saying they had a little podcast about card evaluation. He was saying that the new Garruk everybody's sleeping on. So I don't know if there's hope there, but I think it would be cool if maybe the new Garruk is actually better than I've thought about, because he was talking about how just pumping up your mana dorks and letting them swing in is good in an aggro deck. So he would be going in some aggro decks that feature green. But I don't know. I was very critical of Garruk in our initial set review, and I was just very disappointed. So maybe I'm wrong about that. I would love to be wrong about that. But speaking of our initial set review, we were both wrong about some stuff. I'm only going to talk about what Will was wrong about. Mm-hmm. Oh, no, I'm going to talk about what I was wrong about, too. But he was wrong about the Grub, the Carrion Grub. He was not very high on that card. For those who don't remember, it's 3 and a black for an 0/5. When it enters the battlefield, you mill 4, and it gets +X+0, where X is the highest power of creatures in your graveyard. And it turns out it is incredibly easy to put that in a deck with a couple of Garruk's Gorehorns, which you want to play anyway, and then make it's a 4-mana 7/5. And even when it's a 4-mana 3/5 that mills you 4, you're very happy to have that, because in that deck you want to mill because you want to bring some stuff back with Sanguine Indulgence or whatever. So it's just really nice to mill 4 and have just a 3/5. But the 3/5 will eventually become a 7/5 because at some point you're going to get a Gorehorn in your yard. So that card ended up being really strong.
Well, here's the thing. So, as I mentioned before, I don't play a lot of limited. I haven't really done much limited of M21. So, I actually have no basis to say whether it's good or not. So, I don't feel like I have to feel bad about what I said. So,
okay. Well, I demand you feel bad about it. Okay. No, but I was very wrong about 2 cards. Garruk's Uprising, which Will contradicted me on, and he ended up being right about. Garruk's Uprising is pretty strong. You want it in every green deck where you have 3 or 4 creatures that are power 4 or greater. It's great with the Gorehorn. It's great with the Grub. If you're in green black, but Guruk's Uprising, Will was right about. He mentioned that I think Luis Scott Vargas was high on it, and that was correct. That was a correct assessment of that card. I was way undervaluing it, and I was wrong about Bastry's Acolyte.
Yeah, me too.
I didn't realize. Yeah, the +1/+1 counter basically like meaning that some of the power on that card has haste. You know, you slap the counter on your 3-drop, you're doing pretty good, and it's a lifelink. I still wish it could put the counter on itself, but it's proved itself to be a decent common. It's one of the white commons you're going to pick first after the couple pieces of removal in white at common. So I was wrong about Bastry's Acolyte. I'll eat that one, but
it does a big impact onto the board. Are you seeing much synergy with the +1/+1 counters? Is that something you're looking to do with that card, or is it just like the board impact you're getting from the creature plus the counters?
If you're in green white, then it's a dream to have that with like Pride Malkin, which ended up being a fine card, the one that puts a counter on something and gives things counter trample. It's like a middle of the road common. I don't see a lot of synergy with the +1/+1 counters, but it is doing a lot. Like it's removal is a little weird in this format, like in that it's like really concentrated in white and black. Red just doesn't have access to the good removal it usually does, and like green and blue are the worst removal colors in general. But it's just like it's more likely than I thought it would be to just have a couple of 2-drops to put counters on. So that card is doing well in limited.
We talked about it a little bit, but what's your thought on Ugin in current year?
I love it. I am booging with Ugin. I'm playing the stupid blue-green ramp deck, and it's like I'm literally only losing to the mirror match and like some hard Esper control where they can counter where they leave up a counter spell for the Ugin. Sometimes I'm losing to that, but otherwise I'm just like cleaning up. Like aggro just can't win against it. Fair mid-range decks can't win against it. The Ugin comes down, you wipe the board. Very often they scoop. I had a game where I played a little Ugin to get my big Ugin out from under a Banishing Light, and my opponent sacrificed an Alseid to give the Banishing Light protection, and then realized that Ugin didn't have a color, and then scooped.
Yep.
So that felt pretty great. I'm really enjoying playing with Ugin, with Big Ugin. I know it's not fair. I half expected either it or Growth Spiral to get banned in this update, and I'm surprised it didn't, frankly, Growth Spiral. But I guess that's just because it has 3 months left and they want to watch it run its course. Just between Growth Spiral and Arboreal Grazer, like we're losing a lot of the good ramp with rotation.
Ugin feels so bad to play against, though. Like I get that it's a good card, but like if Ugin hits the other side of the table, like I never feel like I am still in control of the game.
Oh yeah, I was playing against someone playing Esper Control, and they played their own Ugin, and I was like, dude, fuck you, that's not fair. That card is busted. And I was playing my Ugin deck, and I was like, oh, wait, that's what I'm doing, but that's all I'm doing.
Right.
Yeah, it felt awful. On a side note, Teferi bad. Okay, I know Will was like, be cautious because they haven't printed a bad Teferi yet, because I was, undervalued. Or I was hard on the card. I was like, this doesn't really affect board state. This doesn't really, do what you need it to do in any of the decks and like, what are you cutting for it? And it turned out that we were right about that. Like, it doesn't do what you need it to do, and like 100% of the time, I would be infinitely more scared of the cards that they're cutting to put into Teferi. So like the 3-drop Teferi or Narset or Dream Trawler, like the cards that they're cutting to put into Teferi, I would be much more scared of than I would of the 4-cost Teferi. So it is underperforming in every context that I have seen it in personally. Yeah, I'm very happy that Pawblade is doing something.
Oh yeah,
and I love the name of it. I
love that deck. That's actually really what I'm playing in Standard right now.
Okay, rad. Yeah, I wanna throw it together because I have all the cards on Arena. I'm slowly working my way toward Modern Pawblade in paper, but Pawblade's fun. It's neat. I love the name. I love that card. I really wanted that dog dude to see play in Standard. Will said it's not Squadron Hawk, which is accurate. But, I mean, Pawblade is very much not Cawblade. It's an aggro deck. It doesn't play the same. It's just a cutesy, same name. It's just a cutesy play on the name because, you fetch the dogs, and Embercleave is equipment. But it doesn't try to play the same way.
You fetch the dogs as fodder to discard to a Seasoned Hollowblade.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes you play them. You would prefer not to, but sometimes you play them, right?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but it's my point is it's an aggro deck. So if you're looking for Callblade gameplay, don't craft those cards with your wild cards and build that deck because you're not going to find Callblade gameplay. But it's cute. It's a neat little callback.
I know that you mentioned Chandra a little bit ago. Do you really think that she's going to have a home in Standard here soon?
Yes, I hope so. And I think especially after rotation, she's just a good planeswalker. She can generate card advantage. She can remove things that would seek to kill her. She's not the best at that, but her abilities are pretty strong in general. So I cut, like, my current spread of Chandras is 1 War Chandra, 2 M21 Chandra, and 2 Big Chandra.
Yeah.
In Merriment, and I'm down to 1 Little Ugin. I'm not playing any Big Ugin because I don't want to get to 8 mana. But Outlaws Merriment, it's just like a mid-range red-white deck. There's a shitload of removal, and then you just try to stick either a Planeswalker or a Merriment to win the game, or both. If your opponent takes 2 turns where they don't do anything, and then you've won the game. It's a deck that really capitalizes on your opponent taking a turn off because you get to stop playing removal and play a threat, and then you're in there. It's a very fun deck. I really like those decks that sort of capitalize on your opponent going a little too slow, or just answer all of their creatures until they're out of card advantage. Like it's a very back and forth gameplay. So I love that deck. But Big Chandra comes down, kills something with 2 or less toughness with a plus, or you can hit him in the face. Like, that's not bad. And then if you're out of cards, like, most of that deck runs at sorcery speed. So her +1 discards her hand, and then you impulse draw 3. It can be really helpful in the late game when you just need to keep plussing her and getting rid of your opponent's threats. And then eventually, on a turn they don't play any threats, discard your hand, find a Big Chandra or a Merriment, some other way to win the game. Just really helpful. And then her ult is fine. Her ult basically just lets you shock your opponent in the face 4 times and remove whatever creatures, because it lets you search for any number of instants and sorceries and exile them, and then you get 6 red mana, and you can cast any of them. I love Chandra. I'm excited to see her do more things. I like a Planeswalker with a plus that's shock and another plus that generates card advantage. That's just really good. It's fine for 5 mana. She's earned her place in that deck for sure. I'm confident of that.
Yeah, I really hope that the format can evolve to where Chandra can see a little bit more adoption. It seems like just a really cool design for a 5 mana Planeswalker, and I hope she gets there.
Absolutely, yeah. I love the new Chandra. She's quickly becoming one of my favorite cards from the new set. I really want Stormwing Entity to see play in Modern. That I'll be excited for as well. But yeah, I love the new Chandra.
So overall, it sounds like there's some things in M21 that you like, some things that you're not super excited about. But let's give it the limited resources grade. If you had to grade M21, what letter grade would you give it?
Honestly, a B+, A-. It's a fun core set. The only real problem with it was the effect Ugin had on Standard, and that is in no way Ugin's fault. I think the limited environment is fun. It's got some strong cards. It's not boring like a lot of core sets fall into that trap. I love it. It's a very good core set.
Nice.
What are your thoughts?
I'm giving it a C. Core sets can only ever receive a C from me. So, hey, my hands are tied. I can't do anything about it. That's core set.
All right.
Core sets get a C. That's all there is to it.
Okay. I respect that. Yeah.
So there it is. Your grades for M21. Thanks so much for listening to Gut Shot, home of the absolute spiciest MTG hot takes. I'm Will at Aggressive Rhetoric.
And I am War Crimes Ooh Woo on Twitch. Now, they did not unban Hypergenesis in Modern, so that's all the time that we have for today. We have been your hosts, and we thank you for tuning into some Gut Shot. Tune in again next week for Magic the Gathering opinions so bad they'll alienate you from your relatives.